The wind was dry and full of dust. Smoke from burning huts covered the sky. People screamed and ran in every direction. In the middle of this chaos, a young alien girl knelt on the ground, her hands tied behind her back. Her name was Sarah. Her white hair was covered in ash, and the bright markings on her cheeks were stained with tears. Around her stood enemy soldiers from a rival clan. Their weapons were sharp, and their eyes were full of hate. They were going to take her. Near her feet lay a large sword ancient, glowing with blue fire. It was the sacred sword of her clan. Only one man in the world could lift it, the one who would become her husband. Her people believed the sword chose the husband, and once someone touched it, there was no turning back. But right now, that didn't matter. The man meant to wield it had died in battle. No one would save her now. Suddenly, footsteps echoed through the smoke. A tall human man appeared, covered in blood and dirt. His name was James. He was a soldier. From Earth, stranded after his ship crashed. He didn't know this land. He didn't know its rules. He only saw a girl about to be hurt. Without thinking, James ran toward the soldiers. One of them raised a blade to strike him down. James ducked, rolled on the ground, and reached for the nearest weapon. His hand closed around the sacred sword. The moment his fingers touched the hilt, a bright blue light shot into the sky. The enemy soldiers froze in fear. Sarah's eyes widened. She couldn't breathe. That light, it was the sign. The sword had accepted him. It had claimed him. And by lifting it in battle to defend her, James had unknowingly claimed her. With a loud cry, James swung the sword. He fought like he had trained for years with that weapon, even though he had never seen anything like it before. The enemy soldiers backed away. Some ran. Others tried to fight but failed. James stood between Sarah and danger like a wall, the glowing sword shining in his hand. When the dust settled, James dropped the blade and ran to untie Sarah. She stared at him, confused and frightened, but also in awe. "Are you okay?" he asked, trying to help her stand. She nodded slowly. "You lifted the sword." "I needed a weapon," he said, not understanding her fear. "I saw you in danger. I just wanted to help." Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't know what you've done, do you?" Before he could ask more, members of Sarah's clan appeared. The fight was over. The enemies were gone. The villagers gathered around, looking at James with both wonder and shock. They didn't cheer. They didn't thank him. They simply knelt, every one of them facing him and Sarah. James looked around, confused. What's going on? Why are they bowing? Sarah's voice was soft but firm. "You touched the sword. You fought with it for me. That means—" "You are now my future husband?" James blinked. "Wait, what?" The clan elder, a tall alien woman with silver robes and wise eyes, stepped forward. She looked at James carefully. "The law is clear. Only the chosen mate can lift the sword. And if he does so to protect the daughter of the White Flame, the bond is sealed." James stepped back. No, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to stop the fight." "It doesn't matter what you meant," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "The sword has chosen, and so has our law." James stared at Sarah. She was young, maybe his age. Her eyes were bright but scared. She hadn't asked for this. Neither had he. And yet, the people around them were already preparing. Someone was lighting ceremonial fires. Another person brought cloths for wedding robes. James felt a cold fear grip him. He had just wanted to help. How had things gone so wrong? He looked at Sarah. She gave him a small, unsure smile. "You saved me. That's more than most would. Do. I won't force you. But if you leave, they will call me unworthy. My honor will break. My clan will suffer shame." James swallowed hard. He was a soldier. He had fought many battles. But this This was something else. A promise made. Without words. A bond formed by action, not love. He didn't know what to say. All he knew was that the sword still glowed faintly on the ground, as if waiting for his choice. The meaning of the sword. James sat on a stone bench near the fire pit, confused and tired. Around him, alien villagers walked in silence. No one spoke to him directly. They bowed, offered food, or simply stared. He had fought off enemies, but instead of thanks, he got whispers. They looked at him like he had become something else. Something important. Something dangerous. Sarah sat nearby, dressed in clean robes now, her long white hair brushed behind her shoulders. Her face was calm, but her hands kept twisting nervously in her lap. Finally, she stood and walked toward him. You still don't understand, do you? She asked softly. James shook his head. No, I really don't. I was just trying to help you. She sat beside him and looked into the fire. That sword. It is not just a weapon. It is the soul of my clan. It chooses one person in a lifetime, the one who will bond with the daughter of the White Flame. James raised an eyebrow. Bond? As in marriage? Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, the sword was forged long ago with ancient rules and powerful energy. It only responds to a protector. Only someone with a pure heart and strong spirit can lift it in battle to defend a daughter of the clan. If it accepts him, he becomes her future husband. James frowned and looked at the sword resting nearby, still glowing faintly. So you're telling me that because I picked up a sword to save you, now I'm engaged? In the eyes of the clan, she said, you are more than that. You are already chosen. You are part of the blood bond. James leaned forward, running his hands through his messy hair. This is insane. I didn't mean to do any of this. I know, she said. But intentions don't matter. The sword has its own will. He looked at her. So, what? We just get married now, even though we've never met? Sarah looked down, her voice almost a whisper. You don't have to marry me, not if you truly refuse. But the bond is public now. If you walk away, the shame falls on me. My people will say I was rejected by the chosen one. I will lose honor. And they may cast me out. James stared at her. Cast you out? Why? Because the sword has never been wrong, she said quietly. Until now, maybe. Silence grew heavy between them. James looked at her face, at the quiet strength. In her voice, at the way she was trying to stay brave. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. But he could see it in her eyes. She was scared. Not of him, but of what came next. Suddenly, the clan elder approached. She stood tall and straight, holding a scroll in her hand. The bond has been seen, she said, but it is not yet sealed. The trials remain. Trials? James asked. The elder nodded. 3 tests. Not of strength, but of spirit. If he passes, the bond will be true. If he fails, the sword will reject him and she will suffer the price. What kind of trials? James asked, standing. The elder didn't answer. She simply handed him the scroll and walked away. James opened it slowly. Inside were symbols he didn't understand, but Sarah leaned over and read them aloud. First, show kindness without power. Second, face the forest spirit and return alive. Third, let the truth bind your hearts. James stared at the scroll. This isn't just a game to you people, is it? Sarah shook her head. It's everything. James looked up at the alien sky. So many stars. So far from Earth. He never thought picking up a sword would tie him to a life, a law, and a girl. He didn't know. But now he had a choice. Walk away and break her, or try. And maybe become something more than just a lost human on a strange planet. He looked at the glowing sword again. He wasn't ready, but he stayed. Asterisk. Escape or accept? James stood at the edge of the village, gripping the scroll in his hand. The wind blew across the alien hills, carrying the sound of drums behind him. The villagers were preparing for something. He didn't want to know what. His eyes were on the distant mountains. Beyond them, somewhere, was the crash site of his escape pod. Maybe even a way back to his world. A world that made sense. But even as he took a step forward, the weight of the sword still pressed in his thoughts. Not the metal one they had taken that back. The other one. The one tied to duty, to honor, and to her .serh. Her face wouldn't leave his mind. Not just her fear when he saved her, but the silence that followed. The strength in her voice. The sadness in her eyes when she told him he could leave. Back in the village, Sarah was alone in her hut, sitting with her knees pulled to her chest. The people whispered around her. Some praised James. Others doubted his heart. But Sarah said nothing. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She waited. That night, James couldn't sleep. He walked near the edge of the village, past quiet homes and glowing lanterns. He saw two older villagers talking under the stars. If he leaves, she is ruined, one said. She will be banished. Said the other, she will wear the mark of shame. James clenched his fists. It wasn't fair. He never asked for this. He never agreed to any of it. But then, he had lifted the sword. He had fought for her. Even if it was an accident, he had made a choice. He walked away from the village, following a narrow path that led to the open fields. There, he found Sarah. She was kneeling in the grass, her white robe glowing in the moonlight. I thought you had left, she said without turning. James sat beside her. I almost did. She looked at him. You still can. He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, he said, I didn't know. I didn't understand, but now I do, at least a little. Sarah smiled, but it was a sad smile. You don't have to stay because you feel sorry for me. I'm not staying because of guilt, he said. I'm staying because I saw asterisk. The way you looked at me after the battle, like I was something more than just a soldier, and because I don't want to be the reason your people break you. Tears shimmered in Sarah's eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. I'll do. The trials, James said. All of them. You don't have to prove anything, Sarah whispered. I do, he said. Not just to them, to myself. The next morning the village bells rang. The elder called out that the first trial would begin, but James didn't move toward the fighting grounds. Instead, he walked into the homes of the old, the sick, and the forgotten. He chopped firewood for a widow whose hands couldn't hold an axe. He carried water for a child whose legs were weak. He gave food to those who had little left. No weapons, no sword. Just hands, just help. The villagers watched him. Some whispered. Some followed. Some smiled. At sundown, he returned to the elder. The first trial is done, he said. The elder nodded, but gave no praise. Tomorrow you face the forest spirit. It will test your soul. If it finds fear or lies, it will not let you return. James looked back at Sarah. She stood in silence, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. He smiled at her, just once. And for the first time since he had arrived, she smiled back. Trials of the husband, the forest was older than the stars above it. Its trees were tall and twisted, with roots like claws and leaves that whispered. In strange tones, no birds sang here, no animals moved. Only silence and shadows. Somewhere deep inside, the spirit beast waited. James stood at the forest's edge, breathing slowly. The elder had told him, you must go alone. No weapons, no food, no lies. Face the forest, and if you return, you are worthy. It sounded simple, but the way the villagers looked at him as he left, some with fear, Others with pity told him this was not a test many passed. Sarah had waited near the forest all morning. She didn't say much, just pressed a small silver charm into his hand. "It doesn't protect you," she said. "It only reminds you someone is waiting." He nodded and walked into the trees. The forest closed behind him like a mouth. The light faded quickly. Every step felt heavier, like the ground wanted to pull him down. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time was strange here. He began to hear things. His name whispered on the wind. Voices from Earth, his commander, his mother, the screams of war. Then another voice, softer, closer. "Why are you here, human?" James turned slowly. Before him stood a massive beast, glowing like starlight and shadow. Its eyes were silver, its breath cold. "I came for the trial," James said. "To prove what?" asked the beast. "That I'm not a mistake," James answered, louder than he meant to. The beast circled him. "You lifted a sword without knowing its meaning. You touched a future that wasn't yours." "I know," James said. "But I didn't run. I stayed. I'm still here." The spirit beast leaned close. "And if I tear you apart right now, will the girl still smile for you?" James closed his eyes. "Maybe not, but I'll still know I tried." The beast paused. Then it howled a deep sound that shook the trees and vanished. Suddenly, light returned. James found himself standing at the forest's edge once again. The villagers gasped as he walked out, alive and unbroken. Sarah ran to him, eyes wide. "It let you go?" James nodded. "It asked me why I stayed. And what did you say?" He looked at her, then handed her the charm she gave him. "Because someone's waiting." That night, the final trial was announced. Not a battle, not a hunt, just truth. James would have to speak his deepest truth before the entire clan. If he lied, the sword would go cold. If he spoke true, it would glow. The next morning, the village gathered in the circle. The sword was placed between James and Sarah. The elder lifted her staff. "Speak your truth, Earthborn." James looked at the crowd. Then at Sarah. "I don't know your world. I don't understand your ways. But I know this. When I saw her in danger, I didn't see an alien. I saw someone worth saving. And when I saw how your people treated me afterward, I felt confused. But not alone, because she was always there." He turned to Sarah. "You didn't beg me to stay. You gave me a choice. And now I give you one. If you'll have me, I'll stay. Not because I have to, but because I want to." The sword between them flashed brightly, humming with light. The clan gasped. The bond was true, and Sarah, for the first time since her capture, stepped forward and took James's hand. There was no need for words. The sword had already spoken for them. The attack from above piece never lasted long in Sarah's world. Just 2 nights after James passed the final trial, the stars above the village shifted. Lights blinked and moved in patterns too fast for clouds. Elders looked up with dread. Warriors grabbed their spears. The sky was not right. James stood outside Sarah's home, sharpening a tool when he felt the ground tremble. He turned and saw fear ripple through the village like wildfire. Children were pulled inside. Bells rang. Not for celebration this time, but for war. A young scout ran through the path, shouting, "The steel talons are coming! Raiders from the north sky!" Sarah froze. "They should not be here. We have peace." James didn't speak. He knew what this meant. Earth had raiders too. War didn't care for peace treaties. And then the first blast struck. A beam of red fire cut through the sky and exploded near the outer wall. Warriors screamed. Homes burst into flame. The smell of burning wood filled the air. Shouts and panic rose all at once. James grabbed Sarah's arm. "Where's the sword?" "They've hidden it," she said. The elders feared it would be stolen. James cursed under his breath. Then we'll have to fight without it. No, she said, gripping his hand. You must go. They'll come for you. If they take you, they control the bond. They can claim my name and destroy my clan. James stared at her. You want me to run? I want you to live, she said, her voice breaking. That's enough for me. But James didn't move. Another blast struck. The village wall collapsed. Suddenly, a transport ship hovered above, casting a dark shadow across the center of the village. Metal claws dropped from beneath it. Mechanical soldiers descended fast. They wore masks shaped like falcon heads and carried laser spears. The steel talons had arrived. They began grabbing villagers. The chief elder was struck down. Children were herded into corners. James ran forward, punching one of the raiders and grabbing its weapon, but was knocked back. He stood, bleeding but still ready. Then he heard it. James! He turned just in time to see two soldiers dragging Sarah by the arms, pulling her toward the ship. No! He roared, running after her, but he was too slow. The doors closed. The ship rose into the air and vanished into the clouds. Silence fell over the burning village. Bodies lay scattered. Smoke choked the sky. James stood alone. A hand touched his shoulder. It was the young scout. You're still alive. They wanted you, but took her. James nodded slowly. The scout whispered, the elders left a secret for you in the underground chamber. If ever the sword's bearer falls and the bond is attacked. James didn't wait for more. He ran to the old stone hall, pushed aside the slabs, and found the hidden stairway. Inside, resting on a glowing altar, was the sacred sword. It pulsed with a blue flame. His hand hovered above it. You weren't supposed to need me again, he said to the blade. But she's gone, and I won't leave her. He gripped the hilt. The blue flame roared. Outside, the villagers saw the light burst from the temple like a beacon. James stepped out, the sword on his back, his eyes cold with purpose. They came for her, he said, but I'm going after them. Someone asked, do you even know where they took her? He looked to the stars. I'll find them. A human heart, an alien bond, and a sacred sword burning for war. The chase had begun. The rescue and the choice the steel talons didn't hide. For long, James tracked the trail through scorched valleys and glassed mountains. He followed broken signals, fragments of code, and whispered rumors from frightened villages. Each step pulled him farther from safety and closer to Sarah. He wasn't a knight. He wasn't a prince. But the sword on his back blazed hotter with every mile, as if it too wanted her returned. Finally, after 5 days without sleep, he saw it. A black fortress carved into the side of a dead cliff. Ships circled it like vultures. Spotlights scanned the ground. The air smelled of rust and fear. Inside that fortress, Sarah was held. She had been locked in a cold cell, wrists bound by metal rings, her body bruised from the rough hands of the Talon guards. But her spirit remained unbroken. Every time the commander came to mock her, she lifted her chin. You will break, the commander hissed. I was born in flame, she said, and I was claimed by a man who does not run. The commander laughed. That human? He's probably halfway across the stars by now. But just then, alarms wailed. Outside, something had landed. James didn't sneak. He didn't hide. He came through the front burning with fury. The first guards charged him. James swung the glowing sword and cut through the air. The blade didn't just strike, it roared. The hall shook with every swing. Machines sparked. Metal bent like paper. They shot at him. Missed. He moved like wind through fire. Down in her cell, Sarah heard the sounds and smiled for the first time in days. A moment later, the door exploded. Smoke cleared. And James stood in the doorway, breathing. Hard sword blazing in blue light. Her eyes widened. You came. I told you, he said. I don't run. He knelt and broke the cuffs from her wrists. She grabbed his arm for balance, her body weak, but her smile strong. They didn't waste time. Together they raced through the halls. Guards tried to stop them, failed. As they reached the outer platform, the fortress shook again. James had set the engines to blow. No one was chasing them back. They reached a scout pod, small, fast, old. Inside, Sarah buckled in. James took the pilot seat. But before launch, she turned to him. You knew you might die coming here. I knew I couldn't live if I didn't try. She looked down. You've passed the trials, saved the clan. Freed me. She paused, then her voice trembled. But do you still want the bond? Do you still want me? James didn't answer right away. Then he gently took her hand. I didn't come here for the sword or the title. I came for you. The ship launched, leaving fire behind. In the sky, far above the burning fortress, two hearts, one human, one alien, beat as one. He didn't just save her life. He chose her. The wedding under alien stars, village of the white flame, had never seen such brightness. Lanterns floated high into the night sky, glowing like gentle moons. The fires burned not for war, but for joy. Flowers, rare and glowing, lined the paths. Children ran barefoot, laughing, holding little swords made of wood and wrapped in silk. Elders stood tall in their finest robes, watching with quiet pride. They were waiting, but not for a warrior, not for a stranger. They were waiting for their human. And the girl he had returned for. James stood beneath the great spirit tree, its silver branches stretching like arms toward the stars. He wore ceremonial armor not made of steel, but of soft alien threads and silver markings drawn across his chest. He still didn't understand half the customs, but he understood the meaning. Behind them, across the field, Sarah approached slowly. Her dress shimmered like moonlight over water. Her long white hair was braided with crystal vines. Her steps were light, almost floating, and the whole village held its breath as she drew closer. James forgot everything: battles, pain, the journey here. He only saw her. When she reached him, the elder stepped forward, carrying the sacred sword in both hands. Everyone went silent. The sword chose him when he did not know its weight, the elder said. He raised it not for power, but for protection. He faced the trials. He braved the beast. He spoke truth. She turned to Sarah. And you waited not with fear, but with hope. You did not chase him, you let him choose, and he returned. She held the sword up between them. Do you both accept the bond, not by tradition, but by choice? James looked into Sarah's eyes. I do. Sarah smiled, tears slipping quietly down her cheek. I do. They reached out together and lifted the sword as one. It glowed so brightly. The stars themselves seemed to pause. The bond was sealed. The crowd erupted in cheers. Drums echoed. Light danced across every face. James leaned close and whispered, You still sure I'm the right one? Sarah laughed softly. You faced a spirit beast for me, and a fortress. That's enough for now. That night, they danced under two moons. Not a princess and a hero. Not a soldier and a captive. Just two souls from different worlds standing side by side. And as the firelight flickered around them, one truth stood strong. He had picked up a sword to protect her, and in doing so, he had found a home.